Every mechanic I've ever worked alongside, and I mean every single one, does something at oil changes that they never mention to the customer. It costs about $3. And the engines in their own vehicles routinely clear 300, 350, even 400,000 miles without a rebuild. This isn't some closely guarded secret they're sworn to protect. It's just something that never came up in the transaction. You paid for the oil, you paid for the filter, you drove away. But what they did before they closed that drain, that's what we're talking about today. Here's the uncomfortable truth about oil filtration that almost nobody talks about in the quick lube business. Your standard filter doesn't catch everything it's supposed to. Not because it's defective, not because you bought the wrong brand, but because of something built into the physics of how those filters work, and because of one very specific category of particle that slips right through every time. Most drivers think of engine wear as something that happens suddenly. The car starts making a noise, something seizes, something cracks, but that's not how engines actually die. The reality is slower, quieter, and a lot more preventable. What kills most high-mileage engines is something called abrasive wear. Fine metallic particles, often smaller than 5 microns, circulating through the oil system over and over again, acting like microscopic sandpaper on every bearing surface they touch. And here's the thing, your oil filter isn't stopping them. To understand why, you need to understand micron ratings. 1 micron is 1/millionth of a meter. A human hair is somewhere around 70 microns wide. Most of the particles generated by normal engine operation, the kind that come from bearing surfaces, cylinder walls, camshaft lobes, they fall in that 5 to 20 micron range, some even smaller. And a standard spin-on oil filter? Its nominal filtration rating is typically between 25 and 40 microns, depending on the brand. Now, here's where the language gets tricky. Nominal filtration rating means the filter captures particles above that size under ideal conditions. It doesn't mean everything smaller passes through freely, but it also doesn't mean everything smaller gets caught. What you're left with is a meaningful gap between the size of the particles that cause the most wear and the threshold your filter reliably addresses. Think about that for a second. The damage that's quietly accumulating in your engine is happening below the range your filter was designed to intercept. This is where wear studies get interesting. A fleet study published in the journal Lubrication Science tracked wear metal concentration in commercial vehicles over 500,000 combined miles. Trucks running standardized maintenance schedules, not exotic conditions. What the researchers found was that vehicles with supplemental filtration systems, specifically systems that captured sub-10 micron particles, showed iron and chromium wear metal concentrations roughly 60 to 70% lower at the same mileage intervals. Not slightly lower, dramatically lower. The oil analysis told the story that the outside of the engine couldn't. Now let's talk about what that $3 fix actually is. Because it's not a miracle additive. It's not a pill you drop in the crankcase. It's a magnetic drain plug. Your factory drain plug is a threaded bolt. Its only job is to keep the oil in and come out cleanly when you need it to. A magnetic drain plug does that same job, and it does one more thing. It holds a powerful rare earth magnet on the tip that sits submerged in your oil. Any ferrous metallic particle in that oil, iron filings, steel debris, anything with magnetic properties, gets pulled toward that magnet and held there instead of recirculating through your engine. You drain the oil, you pull the plug, you wipe the magnet clean, and you put it back in. That's it. $3. Maybe $5, depending. It just ages slightly faster. And in automotive engineering, slightly faster over 200,000 miles is hard to put in a PowerPoint and get approved. What the manufacturers will tell you, and they're not wrong, is that modern full synthetic oils contain detergent packages specifically designed to keep fine particles suspended and flush them out at the oil change interval. That's true. Modern oil formulations are significantly better at this than they were 20 years ago. But there's a difference between particles being suspended in the oil on their way out at a drain interval and particles being magnetically captured and held stationary while the engine is running. The oil detergency argument is an argument for changing your oil. It doesn't address recirculation between changes. Now, one level up from the magnetic drain plug, and this is for the high mileage enthusiasts, the turbo application people, the ones running extended drain intervals. There's a secondary category of supplemental filtration called a bypass filter system. This is a separate small canister that taps into an oil gallery, typically at low flow and low pressure, and runs oil through an extremely fine filter medium, sometimes down to 1 or 2 microns absolute. The trade-off is that it only filters a small percentage of total oil volume on any given pass, which is why it works in parallel with the main filter rather than replacing it. These systems run $80 to $150 installed for most applications, and the data on them from fleet operators is legitimately impressive. Some long-haul trucking operations have extended drain intervals by 2 to 3 times, without increased wear metal counts. But that's a separate conversation. For most people watching this, the magnetic drain plug is the relevant move. Here's how to think about whether it's worth doing for your specific situation. If you're driving a turbocharged engine of any kind, this is a straightforward yes. Turbo bearings operate at extreme temperatures and speeds, and the oil feeding them needs to be as clean as possible. The wear particle load in turbo applications tends to be higher, and the tolerance for contamination is lower. This is one of the first things I'd add to any turbo engine. If you're driving a naturally aspirated engine with under 80,000 miles and you're running full synthetic on a reasonable interval, the benefit is real but not urgent. Do it at your next oil change. Buy the plug for your thread size, keep the receipt for 3 minutes, install it in 90 seconds. You're done. If you're buying a used vehicle with unknown maintenance history, this goes in before you drive it 500 more miles. You want to know what's in that oil? The magnet will show you. What accumulates on it in the first change cycle tells you more about that engine's internal condition than most diagnostic tools will. And here's the physical action item I want you to actually do. Pull your current drain plug next oil change and look at the tip. If there's a silver gray coating on it, that's metallic particulate that's been accumulating in your pan. Most factory drain plugs are steel, and they pick up a small amount of magnetic debris just from the threading, but it's usually minor. If you see a significant buildup, that's information. If your factory plug has nothing on it, that's also information. Either way, you know something about your engine that you didn't know before. The mechanics who've been doing this for 30 years aren't running exotic setups. They're not doing anything complicated. They swapped one drain plug for another, wiped it clean every oil change, and watched their engines keep running while other people's were getting rebuilt. It's the kind of thing that seems too simple to matter until you understand the mechanism, and then it seems obvious that it would. Drop a comment and tell me what your drain plug looks like the first time you actually check it. I'm genuinely curious what's out there on real-world vehicles and new cars, old cars, maintained and neglected. If you've already been running a magnetic plug for years, tell me your mileage. And if this made you rethink something about how you maintain your engine, hit subscribe. There's a follow-up coming on oil analysis and what your wear metal numbers actually mean.